It is Jobs Day, and for the White House, it brings good news. Stronger than expected payrolls, up 187,000 jobs. Wage growth, the slowest pace since early last year. Participation up for the first time since March. President Biden speaking to the nation from the Rose Garden a short time ago.
We've recovered all the jobs lost during the pandemic. We've added 1 million more new jobs. More than 700,000 people joined the labor force last month, which means the highest share of working-age Americans are in the workforce now than at any time in the past 20 years.
It's a good story to tell. You wonder where we're heading with some real cross-currents, some headwinds coming in September. So I went down to the Labor Department this morning to talk about it with the acting Secretary of Labor, Julie Su. We met outside, started by reading her a tweet from Mark Zandi. This is what Mark said on Twitter. The August jobs report could not be much better. Job growth solid but slowing. Unemployment rose, but for the right reason. More labor supply. Participation jumped. Wage growth continues to moderate. Hours worked rose. The report, he says, has soft landing written all over it. And so I started by asking Madam Secretary if that's how she sees it. Here she is.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of job growth we'd want to see if we're looking for a soft landing.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that said, unemployment is rising, and it's interesting to see Wall Street celebrating that. I'll ask you your thoughts on that in a moment. But the duration of unemployment is increasing. Is that because more people are looking for work or because of the many people on strike right now in this country?
So the slight uptick in unemployment was due entirely to more people coming into the labor market. Mm-hmm. I think that is also a sign of optimism, right? It's a sign of the strength of our economy. It was also a very small uptick so that the overall unemployment rate remains under 4% for the longest stretch since the 1960s.
Yeah. What do you think as we walk into this Labor Day when you see Wall Street rally on the idea of rising unemployment?
I think that these are all signs that the president's economic agenda, what we call Bidenomics, his investing in America, right? The idea that if we do our jobs well, we can have a tight labor market where workers share in prosperity, where we recover from the economic catastrophe of the global pandemic to a point where we have steady and stable growth, that all this is not only possible, but it's actually happening.
You've been asked a lot about union actions lately with regard to the UAW, what's going on in Hollywood right now. There could be flight attendants involved. This could go beyond that. I'm not going to ask you if you're getting involved yet, because I know you're waiting to be asked if that happens to make a decision at some point. But what are your models telling you? If all of these strikes were to coincide in the fall, what would that mean for our economy?
Right. So let's put all this in the context of the Jobs Day numbers that we're talking about. This is an economy that has defied all expectations in terms of its recovery, both the rapid pace of it and how broadly shared it is. Mm-hmm. This is Bidenomics in action. Part of the president's commitment is to empowering workers, making sure that workers get their fair share and do well. And part of that has meant that unions have more ability, power to demand changes at the bargaining table. We've seen some really good results from that, right? The Teamsters and UPS resolved their issues. Yeah. People wrung their hands about that too and wondered, expected that not to happen. Sure. It not only happened, but they ratified a contract with some 86% of members. The West Coast ports, 29 ports resolved issues that were really complicated as well and have a multi-year contract. Mm-hmm. These are what happens.
So you see this resolving itself?
I mean, I'm not going to make a prediction about that, but I do think that the process requires that we respect the parties' ability and their continued commitment to bargaining at the table.
I have to ask you about Taylor Swift. I don't know if you saw Taylor Swift when she came to town, but we're hearing that the impact, the Federal Reserve even mentioned this, of her tour and even Beyonce's tour to some extent helped to paper over some weakness that might have otherwise emerged in this jobs report. What's it going to look like when everyone comes off tour after the summer?
So I'm going to say something about women in general, right? Okay. Women are powering this economic recovery. We can talk about Beyonce, we can talk about Taylor Swift. I want to talk about the record numbers of women in the job market now. Right? Remember, during the pandemic, women were pushed out of the labor market through things like our lack of paid leave, difficulty with accessing childcare. Those women are now back in the labor market. We have the 5th month of historic percentage of women in jobs, and I think we should continue that effort to create good jobs, create good union jobs, and make sure that everybody has access to them, including women.
Could we see a hiccup, though, when when all of these tours come to an end? They're obviously employing more than women.
Yeah, but women, I mean, looking at the labor market as a whole and jobs as a whole, I think that we're, fortunately, broad-based recovery means we're not just reliant on one or two superstars, but we're really seeing what happens when people have confidence, when you create good jobs in all communities. And at the Department of Labor, we're really focused on making sure that everybody can get those jobs.
Madam Secretary, happy Labor Day. I look
Happy
forward to
Labor
seeing
Day.
you in a month.